If you're trying to get in shape, the most common advice you're gonna get is to eat clean. However, if you're not careful, this strategy can backfire and make you even fatter. Take me, for example. I got in great shape eating clean, and I was able to do it for 5 years. That is until I finally slapped on 35 pounds, and felt hopeless. Unfortunately, focusing too much on eating clean makes a lot of people gain weight. So today I wanna show you the danger of eating clean, what I did to right the ship and end up in the best shape of my life, all while including foods like pizza and ice cream, and so can you. Okay, very quick before I get into the nuts and bolts of things here, because I can already see the comments coming. If you're able to stay on a strict clean eating plan and it works great for you, awesome. Nutrition protocols are very individual. However, this world doesn't really have much of a weight loss problem. We have a weight maintenance problem, and research shows almost everyone who ends up losing weight gains the weight back. And why does this happen? Well, of course, there's many factors, but to me, one of the biggest ones are unsustainable dieting methods, and the problem solely focusing on eating clean often brings is it leads to binging type behavior, an all or nothing mentality, and constant yo-yo dieting, leading you end up getting not only nowhere, but ended up even bigger. So I'm certainly not saying it's bad to eat clean. I'm not saying you should just eat as much junk food as possible. However, there's several problems that can arise by focusing too much on clean eating, not the least of which is there's no real definition for it. And honestly, if you look at all the different diets with names out there, all of them can show people who got results. But if you combine all of them together, pretty much every food on the planet is now off limits. Now, while we can't really define clean versus dirty foods, what I want to try to do for at least the context of this video is typically when people are thinking about clean foods, the reason it's considered clean is usually because it's more filling, oftentimes has more micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals, and foods that if you buy from the grocery store, if you don't eat them relatively soon after buying them, they're gonna spoil. Now, when you're thinking of dirty foods, you're typically thinking of foods that are easy to overeat. They're gonna be void of any micronutrients. And let's face it, unfortunately, it's things we typically think of as delicious foods, your pizzas and your donuts and ice cream and fried foods. So a message I really wanna drive home with this video is there's bad diets, but not individual bad foods, because it requires context. For instance, let's say somebody got lost in the woods for a few weeks and they're literally starving to death, and they somehow come across an unopened package of Twinkies. Should that person pass up on that food because it's bad? In that situation, that Twinkie would be incredibly healthy. Of course, that's an extreme example. Let me give you some context that may help it make more sense to you if we look at, say, an apple versus a piece of cake. So if you look at each piece of food individually, side by side, the apple wins. However, let's just say you really want that piece of cake, but you tell yourself, no, I can't have that, it's bad for me, and you stick with the apple for now, but that just makes you feel even more restricted, and eventually you just snap and you end up binging on an entire cake because of this. Well, in that case, if you would have instead just ate the one piece of cake and that helped you feel satisfied and not need to go off the deep end, then in that instance, I would say that the piece of cake was healthier for you because it kept your overall diet on plan. This is one of the biggest problems most people have, is you feel like you went off plan, now you screwed everything up. Well, since I've screwed it up, I might as well get in as much as I possibly can now because my diet starts again tomorrow. Oftentimes you beat yourself up so much that it carries on for several days, if not weeks, if not months, if not years. And the thing is, there's nothing to feel bad about. Food does not have morality. And this is why you can't look at foods as good or bad. This is why I don't like the term cheat meal, because it implies you're doing something wrong. If you cheat on a spouse, that's something to feel guilty about. Eating a hamburger is not something to feel guilty about. And the thing is, food is such a huge part of our lives. Yes, food is fuel, but it's not just fuel. It's also celebrations and holidays and vacations and get-togethers. And if every time you have one of these occasions come up, you feel like you need to cheat and you go crazy, you're gonna have a hard time making progress. So really, step one to helping create a healthy relationship with food and get past this all or nothing mentality is to learn how to include these foods you enjoy, even potentially daily at first. You don't ever crave things you have almost all the time. You crave things that you ban because as soon as you tell yourself you can't have something, you automatically want that thing even more, and then the longer you've been without it, the more you're gonna crave it. By doing this, you also learn that it's a choice whether you want to include that food or not, and there's not a right or wrong answer. But when you feel like you can't have it, you're more likely to rebel against your diet. For me, a huge part of creating a healthy relationship with food came with tracking my intake and learning how to include these foods in moderation into my days, and often oftentimes I would actually plug that food in right away to start, and then the rest of my food around that. And that way you can see I can still have these things, I can still get all my healthy foods in and everything. And when I made my big cut from 210 pounds down to 178 pounds, I'm not joking, I had ice cream almost every single day during that time. However, what I did first, and I strongly recommend, is basically ate the same as I had before, tracked it for a week to see what things looked like, found out what my average calories were, and just focused on trying to maintain a little bit, learning to include these foods, because it's much harder to do so when your calories are lower and you're in a calorie deficit, because the lower your calories are, the harder it is to work in some of these foods. Now, I know what you might be thinking here, you can include junk food and you can still lose weight, but it's not healthy. But you know what? That's not necessarily true. Not only are there plenty of examples who have done extreme things trying to show that you can include junk food and lose weight, like the abs and ice cream guy who ate 2,000 calories worth of ice cream every day for 100 days and lost 30 pounds. There was a Twinkie diet guy who lost like 27 pounds. There was a McDonald's diet guy who lost like 60 pounds. And all these people not only lost weight, but showed improvements in all their health markers as well. And this has been shown in the research too. For instance, a lot of people look at high versus low GI foods, but especially when calories and protein and especially fiber are equated, whether you consume higher GI or lower GI foods made no difference, not only in fat loss, but also health markers. Same thing with higher and lower sugar amounts. These foods are easier to overeat, but as long as you're keeping calories equated, getting your protein in, getting plenty of fiber in, you're still gonna be getting all your micronutrients and all the things that you need. So the little bit of extra sugar or whatever else, it's irrelevant. And this is why I say your diet needs context. The other problem with just looking at healthy foods is a lot of healthy foods can actually be pretty high calorie. And if you're not aware of that, it can make it hard to lose body fat. If you're just pounding tons of nuts and putting olive oil all over all your food, while these have plenty of healthy properties, those calories add up real quick and make it harder to lose body fat. So the reason clean eating works as a whole for a lot of people is because it does help you feel fuller and therefore eat less calories and you lose weight. But it's not magic and it's not 100% necessary to only eat clean. So you can see how important it is to create a healthy relationship with food, and it's one of the key components to making sure you not only lose the weight, but keep it off long term. However, a healthy relationship with food isn't the only reason you may always gain weight back after losing it. So to find out how to finally lose the weight and keep it off long term, make sure you check out this top video next, and I'll see you in that other video.